Welcome to A Podcast Divided. I'm Daniel and I'm a Cubs fan.
Then who am I? Oh yeah, I'm Andy and I'm a Sox fan.
And this is A Podcast Divided after the intro.
Your Daily Cubs White Sox podcast, the best place for all the baseball debate you need.
Sorry.
And welcome everyone to A Podcast Divided. Once again. And today we're gonna be starting off talking about the Cubs moves, and then we're gonna be talking about the White Sox moves, and then at the end we'll do a tiny bit just about the league and what's going on around the MLB. So we're gonna start off with the Cubs, and
You got the name, didn't you?
The Cubs, first of all, it's barely worth knowing that they got backup catcher, and they made like no moves until they actually started making moves a couple days ago. And so it all started off when we got Shota and Manga a few days ago. And a little bit about him is that he has great control, not a good fastball. And honestly, he was a big target for the Cubs. I mean, Yamamoto was that big guy who everyone was looking for. And everyone was watching him closely. But, I mean, besides Yamamoto, coming from Japan, like Imanga was the guy to get. And for the Cubs price point, they want a good budget deal. Welcome, Key. And they got it here, right? I mean, this deal is crazy good. And the way they did it is after the 2025 and 2026 seasons, the Cubs get to decide whether they want him for a fifth year 2 times. With no extension, it's 4 years, 53 million, 13.25 million. With the extension, it's 5 years, 80 million, 16 million per. So, isn't that so budget?
In my opinion, he's going to be the next Yusei Kikuchi. You know, he was the third best Japanese pitcher on the free agent list, and I guess that's saying a lot, but still.
You count Ohtani, but Ohtani wasn't coming from Japan.
Yeah, I know,
so.
but he was born and raised in Japan.
Fair.
I do count Ohtani.
Fair.
So, yeah, in my opinion, Imanaga is going to become the next Yusei Kikuchi, and we all know that story. Hyped up and didn't really do much in the league with the Blue Jays. I don't even know if he's on the Blue Jays or the Mariners. I think he's still on the Blue Jays. But I'm sure everyone knows that is an overpay for Kikuchi because he's the definition of mid. And I feel like Imanaga is going to be the next Yusei Kikuchi.
Well, I mean, you could definitely be right. But, I mean, let me just read some of his numbers from Japan. And I know this is Japan, but, like, still, it's pretty high level. And he was 7-5 last year in 24 games with a 2.66 CRA, 188 strikeouts, and 159 innings. I mean, that's some strikeouts, and you have to remember in Japan, it's more of a contact league. Like, that strikeout number might stay the same because of the higher level of competition, but I mean, I think you can expect him to be like mid threes to low 3 like ERA with decent strikeouts, like, and be a very solid second star for the Cubs because if they were a super rotation, he could be third maybe, but this is not a super rotation. This is a solid one after this signing, though. Definitely opens up a lot of doors, and I don't know if we're gonna get another starter, but I'd focus on the bullpen if I were the Cubs. But a little bit before I talk about the other deal, before we move on to the White Sox, who do we want to get? Well, we have the middle infield. We have a lot of outfield pieces. We have Yan Gomes at catcher, who's gonna get the job done. Not your best catcher, but he's decent.
He's getting old.
He's got that. He's getting old, so he might decline. But you know, I'm okay with the catcher spot. We need a first and third baseman. Those are two big gaping holes which need to be filled if the Cubs want to be good. And then the outfield, I think we should probably add an outfielder, although that's not the priority. And I'll just talk about him in a little bit later, but Bellinger. And but I'm gonna be talking about him in a little bit. So the first move before I talk about the targets, the second move that has happened, I believe it was like a day or two after the first Imanaga signing, and it was the Cubs and Dodgers making a trade. The Cubs got Michael Busch, Yency Almonte in a trade in exchange for two young prospects, and they barely gave up anything. Like, I know they gave up some decent prospects, but like their farm system is barely affected with this. And Jackson Ferris and Zakir Hope are their names. So first, let's talk about Jackson Ferris and Zakir Hope are the two players the Cubs gave up.
Okay,
Very irrelevant.
You definitely fleeced the Dodgers there. I can't deny that.
Fleeced. And here's the thing, right? Let me tell you about the main guy in a lot of people's opinions, Bush. Although you could say it was Almonte. You see, Bush is the guy who has a high ceiling, most people say. And that's because he's been insane at the minor league AAA level. Issue is he's struggled to bring that really raw power and that raw skill set of being a star in MLB from the minors to the MLB. And he's only had a little bit of time in the majors so far, just a cup of tea, you could say. But from going consistently hitting over 300 with over 20 home runs in a shorter season, he joined the MLB and he hit 2 home runs and hit 167. So is he a risk? Definitely. He's not been established at the MLB level. He's young though, and his potential is hitting 20, 30 home runs and batting 280 for the Cubs at third or DH. Yeah, because the Cubs, I read they really want him at third. And then you also have to talk about Almonte. Now, he has had some success at the MLB level. In relief in 2022, he had a 1.02 ERA in 33 games. But then last year, that inflated to 5.06 in a larger sample size of 49 games. So who are you going to get? I don't know. So this is why this trade was good for the Cubs, but it could be an amazing fleece, or it could be like maybe the Cubs win by a tiny bit. I'm not sure, but I mean, it's definitely a smart move because I was talking about the relief pitching too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Me and Cherry's are the best day podcast about his fans. Okay, so now targets before I move on. I'm going to be wrapping up this up in a minute, but got Cody Bellinger. I mean, honestly, like with all the outfielders that have been going out, I don't see him going to the Dodgers. No one does at this point. The Giants is very low odds because of the fact that they got Jung-Hoo Lee.
I could see Bellinger being a Giant.
Now, you could say that he could sign to the Giants still, and they could have 2 big outfield signings, but I don't think that's going to happen because they signed their guy. They spent a lot of money. I mean, about the money that Bellinger will take probably. And then there are a few teams that can get him, but the Cubs at this point, if they can bid the right amount, because the Yankees got Soto too, right? That's the team I was forgetting, the biggest team that was in the talks. And the Cubs make sense because he liked it here, and his market is falling with all these signings going down. You see, I don't think the Cubs should sign him for $200 million. I don't think he's gonna get $200 million anymore. He probably should have signed back when he was thinking about $300. And honestly, with the market dropping, it might be wise for him to agree to a deal that was less than he was thinking, but market might just keep dropping, and he could be weighing out until spring training. Never know, but I think a deal might happen soon if Boris doesn't get too greedy and thinks about, maybe I should just make a move, agree to a deal now before value keeps dropping, because that's the trend right now, going down. And the Cubs could capitalize on that get a bargain. However, will he be good? I mean, we've talked about this so many times. This is the whole discussion about Cody Bellinger. He was an MVP. Then he was the worst player in baseball for 2 years. And then he was a pretty solid hitter. Like, I don't know what to do about him, man. If the Cubs get him, I'll be happy. But do not overpay because that contract could be really annoying, especially for the Cubs. They don't got extra money. I mean, they have to pay Bellinger like they did Hayward when he's one of the worst players on the team. Like, we'll regret it. And my final two were worst players. They're not as big stars, but would be really good for that third base, first base positions. Rhys Hoskins, he can play mainly first base. I think the Cubs want. He can also play left field. I saw though. He has potential for 30-year home runs. Why is he so budget? Because he had a 2023 ACL surgery. And so he's only going to sign for a short deal, and the Cubs will hope to have what they had from Bellinger, have a great season on a 1-year deal. You know what I mean? So that could work. Maybe you re-sign him next year. And then Matt Chapman, final player I want to talk about before I shift it to you, Andy.
Who?
Matt Chapman is a guy who the Cubs fit because the Cubs like good defense over like big bats, and Matt Chapman is a very defensive third baseman. Wouldn't be too much, and I think the Cubs might get him. I mean, he makes sense. I would like a better bat, but he's also a very solid buy for us. And Hoskins might provide that pop. So that's all I've got about the Cubs. And Andy will be back about the Sox after this break.
There's a break?
So, we like to remind you guys that if you want to get tickets, you know where to go. We have a code for our other channel that works for this one too. It's code FORTBOYS, FORTBOYS. And with that code, you can get $20 off your first purchase on SeatGeek. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring this channel and the other ones too. Use SeatGeek. Andy, go ahead.
All right. Well, since the firing of our former GM Rick Hahn, I would like to say Chris gets. He's been getting a lot of solid players for the White Sox now. The White Sox currently find themselves in a situation where they don't know what to do. They don't know whether to rebuild or retool. But Chris Getz has been leaning towards the retool situation because, in my opinion, the White Sox still have some talent that they haven't expressed yet, especially our stars like Eloy, Moncada, Robert. I doubt that they're gonna make a playoff push, but just on the slight chance that they do, I'm pretty happy about the moves that they made. And we did get rid of a lot of key players over the trade deadline and offseason, of course, like Giolito, Lance Lynn, and heading to free agency would be Liam Hendricks, Yasmani Grandal, and Tim Anderson. In my opinion, I think we've done a pretty good job in filling in our holes that we've had for a while now, like our middle infield. But first, I'd like to talk about the trade that we made with the Braves. That trade was very, very good for us because we only had to trade one relief pitcher who, by the way, had a 6.79 ERA for the White Sox last season. And he just was not good. He goes by the name of Aaron Bummer. And boy, was he last year. He was just like the team. He was not very good. But boy, did we get a haul for him because the Braves do find themselves in a place where they do need some relief. So we ended up getting a very, very good package for him. We got starting pitcher Mike Soroka, this already looks like a fleece bummer for Soroka because Soroka can be very, very good if he stays healthy. Another pitcher, Jared Schuster, and Riley Goins, who's also a pitcher. That's not very – it's just like two more pieces because why not? And the second huge piece, Nicky Lopez. who, fun fact, was actually raised in Naperville. So maybe he's a Sox fan. Maybe he's living out the dream, even though this is not a very dream situation he's being forced to be put into. But Nicky Lopez, he is going to most definitely fill in the hole that we have at our middle infield. And also Brandon Shoemake, who is not ready for the MLB yet. And we did sign some free agents. We did fill some more holes. Specifically at catcher, we really did a good job filling the hole that Yasmani Grandal left when he left the White Sox. We signed Max Stassi, who can be a very solid backup and an okay starting catcher, but still not good. But then we ended up getting Martin Maldonado, who was a very good veteran for the Astros. And he could still be a good player who can make an impact for sure. And here are some of our signings. We ended up getting some pitchers, namely Chris Flexen, which I love that name, Chris Flexen. He'll flex all over his opponents, and Fetty also, and we also ended up getting in for agency Paul DeYoung from the Cardinals, who that's probably going to be our middle infield, DeYoung and Nicky Lopez. And so our pitching rotation is probably going to look something like Cease, Kopech, Soroka, Clevenger, and then either Flexen or Fetty. I don't know which one they're going to go with. It could look a little bit different than that, obviously, but that's probably what it's going to look like. Catching, it's going to be Maldonado and Stassi. The infield, it's going to be Andrew Vaughn, DeYoung probably at second, maybe Lopez at short, and then Moncada at third. Elvis Andrus is still on the team, so maybe he can be like a good backup second baseman, since I don't think he has the ability to be a good starter, even for a team as mediocre as us. And there has been some buzz going around with the Whites. I forgot to mention the outfield, which would probably just be Luis Robert and some other no-shows. Anyway, the real buzz that's been going on about the Chicago White Sox has been about Dylan Cease, our ace. 2 years ago, it was a Cy Young contender, so he's a pretty good pitcher, and he didn't put up bad numbers last year either. They were not great, but they most certainly were not bad numbers.
And this is the part where we get a little entwined Cubs and White Sox kind of together, because, I mean, Cubs have been in the rumors. Cubs and White Sox like making moves. Cubs could use another starter,
Yeah, actually, the Cubs could use another starter, but here's the problem. The reason why Cease hasn't been traded yet is because Chris Getz, the GM, has a absolutely enormous asking price for Cease. So it really has to be a team with a deep farm system who's going to have to end up trading for Cease, because that's what we're looking for. We are looking for people who could really bolster up the farm system, which is pretty thin right now. And the Cubs can do that. They can most certainly do that. The Cubs have a lot of prospects that could be traded, like Kevin Alcantara, Pete Crow Armstrong, Owen Casey, Ben Brown. There's definitely some people who can be traded to the White Sox, and I wouldn't be all that bad.
Well, I mean, we have the farm system. But Jed Hoyer is also smart enough to not just give the White Sox a handful of our top prospects. And for Dylan Cease, I mean, how much control will you get if you trade for him? How long does his contract last?
I'm pretty sure it's just 1 year, because he just had arbitration, and he signed an $8 million deal, which I believe is for 1 year. So a team would have to re-sign him. So yeah, there's that. But the Cubs are most certainly not the only team in the Dylan Cease talks. I would say that there's 3 other teams that could definitely be in contention. Maybe there's others like the Yankees, but they just got Stroman like 20 minutes ago. The Dodgers, they used to be in contention, but now they're not, because they have a lot of pitchers now. But I would say that the 3 main contenders for Dylan Cease would be the Baltimore Orioles, the Cincinnati Reds, and the Atlanta Braves.
let me just warn you. Be careful with saying that Yankees got Stroman. Now they might not be in the talks with Cease. Like you could say even more about the Cubs because they're locked up with Imanga for longer than the Yankees are with Stroman. Like if anything, you should take the Cubs off too in that if you're going to take off the Yankees, at least for that reason.
Yeah, you're kind of right because if I know anything about the Yankees, I know that they get players with big names. So yeah, I guess the Yankees could be included, but I don't see them spending any more money than they already did. That's the big deal because you guys still have budget and the Yankees don't have much of that. But
Yep.
yeah, the Orioles, the Reds, the Cubs, and the Braves are four teams that lack a starting pitching job. They're four teams that have a deep farm system, and they're four teams that are looking to be competitive. And these are really this is like the pot that you need to have the trade soup. With Dylan Cease. In my opinion, I think the Orioles are going to get him just because of how deep their farm system is, and I obviously don't expect the White Sox to get anyone close to Jackson Holiday or anything like that. But it's just the thing about the Orioles is that if they even trade like two or three good prospects, they still have a lot of other prospects. So it wouldn't really it only really cause a dent to their farm system if they do trade for Dylan Cease because of all of their amazing prospects that they have.
I think that's really fair.
Yeah, and also the Orioles are definitely one of the most competitive teams coming into 2024 as they won 101 games last season, which is no one expected that. Not even the Orioles. So I think that there will be. I don't even know if there's going to be a trade. I think the White Sox do have a chance at keeping Cease at least until the trade deadline. But if there is one, I would bet my chips on the Orioles.
Yeah, honestly, like thinking about like what I want him. No, I'm not saying this because he's a former White Sox or he is a White Sox player, I guess still. But his stats, I mean, like this is not the best. Like you get 2019 through 2023, okay? 5.79 ERA, 4.01, 3.91, 2.20, 4.58. And you were going down from 2019, and after 2020, you were in a good range. Although 2020 was a small sample size. I mean, 2022, if you get that guy and he pitches with a 2.20 ERA, you get that Cease. That Cease is the guy who can lead the Cubs rotation, I think.
He is that guy in
But
2022.
who are you getting? And especially if you get him on a contract after, I mean, he's 28 in 2024.
Yep.
I see no reason why you would make that move. I don't think it's the smartest one though. I'm gonna have to tell you.
Yeah, I mean,
you think it's a smart move for all those teams?
if you're in contention for a World Series, then you might as well go and solidify your chances as much as possible. So that's why I think teams like the Reds and the Cubs might not go for him. I think it's again going to be a more competitive team like the Orioles and the Braves, who are looking to win now. Even though the Orioles are young, I still think they're in win now mode. So I think Dylan Cease would be a good fit for the Orioles. But the asking price of Chris Getz with Dylan Cease is pretty remarkable, and it drives a lot of teams away. Like even the Reds got driven away, and I'm sure that's why a lot of teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees signed their pitchers already because they got driven away by how crazy the asking price for Cease is. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're in win now mode, go for him, but be warned you're going to have to trade a lot for him. Which as a Sox fan, I'm very glad because I love when we trade one stupid player for a lot of prospects who will be good in the future. And also also time is up, but I just want to say one more thing. I just hope that Chris Getz is good at negotiating, so that we can get as much as possible for a pretty valuable pitcher.
Yeah, honestly, my final thing about that White Sox stuff, I don't see the White Sox not winning that trade, honestly.
I mean, yeah, me too.
So I think you should be happy Cease is on the way, except for losing him as a player. Trust me, from experience, trading players, it's sad because you have a connection, but it's smart. But
Yeah.
anyways, Andy, I'm gonna wrap up around the MLB for the last few minutes, but been
All
nice
right.
having you on. See you soon.
Yeah. Wait, should I leave?
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Go Cubs. So guys, we're gonna wrap this up here with just me. And we're gonna do this. So I'm just gonna be talking about some around the MLB. To put it simply. So before we get into that though, another reminder that we are sponsored by SeatGeek and use code 4boys for $20 off on your first purchase. So, final things to talk about around the MLB. It's been going on. On the last episode, bit ago, 4 weeks ago, we saw Shohei Ohtani. We talked about Shohei Ohtani signing. Since then, we also got Yamamoto. And I'm kind of feeling like talking about the Dodgers. Like, you could go a lot of ways, but I am scared as a fan of a team in the National League of the Dodgers. I know they always lose in the playoffs, but to be that good, like on paper, if they had 100 wins last year with their pitching staff injured, I mean, I'm thinking like you add Ohtani, the best player in baseball, maybe baseball history, even though he's not going to pitch, so you have to discredit that. And Yamamoto and healthy guys, the team's all healthy. Could they win I think they could win 120 games and break the win record. Now, that's if everything goes good like it did for the Giants back in 2021. But maybe I think it's more reasonable to say they're going to win like on a low 90 to 95 games and on the high 110, 105, 110. I think that's fair. Maybe I'll say the range is 90 to 110. Because this team is scary. They've got it all. And they've got all the money too, and that's why they're so annoying. Oh, yeah. At least we made a good trade off of them. But they can make a bad trade. That's the annoying part, right? And it's bad for baseball, honestly, to have teams like this that can exploit the system, that can make bad moves just because they are them. Like, the Dodgers are the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers can do things like this for all of Otani's money. Like the Dodgers can spend extra money on Yamamoto, just pull 300 something million out of their hat just because they want to add another good starter. Like it's crazy, but that's the situation in the MLB right now. You could say that, and I would agree with you that it would be good for the MLB to work on making it more even. And I think we talked about this early, but we didn't really discuss it. The Yankees signed Marcus Stroman to a 2-year, $37 million deal, and it's pretty hilarious because it's a pretty bad deal. Like he was wanting a lot more money before, and somehow the Yankees still overpaid him. And the fact that his AAV is higher than Imanga's shows how the Yankees, maybe they think they can afford it more than they can, honestly. Because you look at how much success they had last season. They weren't very good. I don't remember how many wins they got. I'll look that up right now. But let's just say that they were not necessarily a very good team. And I think that they kind of took it too far in the sense that like we can spend too much money and make bad deals just because we'll add more players. Like, let's see here, 82 and 80. They did worse than the Cubs. Okay, like it's just like, why would you make that deal? And how do you overpay for Stroman? Like, I don't want Stroman on the Cubs, and I find it funny to see that that's what happened to him. Like, he's being overpaid in that situation, but the Yankees will overpay, so that's that. Ooh, here we go. More news here. Corbin Burns in the Brewers settled at 15.6375. I don't know why it's getting that specific. $1 million to avoid arbitration. Burns is on track to reach free agency at season's end. So Corbin Burns will probably not be traded. I don't know if that means officially he won't be or if he will probably not be. Looks like he agreed, though, so I think that he probably won't be. And, yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure if the Cubs are actually going to get him, but looks like it's even more the chances that they will not. So, I think that's pretty much all I got to talk about right now. I mean, we got the arbitration deals going through. We got Steele. We got Cubs. I believe I heard the Cubs got every single player signed without, like, having to go to court. So, good. They're in good connections with all their players still. Everything's still good about that. Got Manga, made the good trade with the Dodgers, managed to scam them a little bit, and that's pretty much it. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good rest of your night. Go Cubs.